What to do if you have few articles. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I want to get to our group exercises. But what I want you guys to do when you don't have too many articles, if you have 3 questions, you don't have many articles, the first thing you should not do is you should not panic. Do not panic, do not lose your calm, do not lose control. Your round is not over if you don't have articles, it's just severely hampered. That didn't help any, I don't think. But don't panic. Don't make the problem worse than it is. You still have plenty you can use. You still have a brain, and that's more than 90% of America. So you're still doing good. Just make sure you don't make the problem worse by panicking and getting super stressed about it. There are kind of two types of people in the world. There are people that under pressure, their brains physiologically work better, and there are people whose brains don't work better. Just figure out who you are and understand what to do to mitigate that if your brain doesn't work very well under pressure or work very well under stress. Have a method in place to say, okay, here's what I can go back to. Here's my little shelter, here's my little rock that I can crawl under. If I don't have
bring a rock into the
Patrick. Bring a little statue of Patrick in and put a rock on top of it. Just do anything to relax yourself, don't panic. Go back to your step-by-step process. Go back to your training and just work through each part. If you think about like elite athletes, like elite Olympic athletes, they know what to do when stuff goes wrong because they've had the training to deal with it. Our military knows what to do when stuff goes wrong because they have the training to deal with it. In a comparable way, you have the training to be able to overcome any situation if you practice, if you dedicate yourself to it. And if you do that, just go back to your step-by-step process, go back to what you do, and just do the best you can. As long as you understand, prepping without articles is no more difficult. If you understand something, for instance, if I had to give a speech now on Argentina, and I had absolutely no articles to do it, it would still be pretty easy for me to prep that, because I now understand what's going on. Well, I did understand what was going on when I was actually reading the news. I understood what was going on, so it wouldn't have been very difficult. It would have just been trying to find some articles that I could use. The second thing you want to do is you want to find the borderline articles. There will always be articles that are almost there, that are almost relevant. Those are going to be your best friends in these situations, because you can actually use them to create a new opportunity. Find some articles that have some connection to the question, but not really. So these are articles that wouldn't pop up if you search the general term. Let's say for some reason the press decided to stop reporting on the minimum wage, and there were no articles on the minimum wage. So if you search minimum wage, you got one result, and you're like, oh wow, that's not really any. So something that you could search is labor laws or something like that. Something else that's kind of connected to the same topic, but isn't the same idea. Those borderline articles. You can usually do this by making your search terms more general or just applying it to a different or more related subject. But in other words, just try to find articles that are close to being relevant. And finding these borderline articles, you may be able to find some that you can use. You may be able to find some articles that you can actually use as very specific things, like, oh, look, yeah, awesome. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find anything, everything that you can possibly conceive of using that you can use to cite in your speech. You should still be able to construct your speech without evidence, but judges look for evidence, and so you need to find ways to find evidence to put in there. Another great way is to make it seem like you have more sources than you do by citing the same article at multiple places in your speech. Now, it will say Reuters on March 3rd. Oh, citing Reuters on March 3rd again, citing Reuters on March 3rd, but it will at least sound like you have support for your points, even if it's not very, still make sure you have support for your points. Understand before. I've talked about this a little bit, but make sure you understand these issues before you get into prep time. Not having articles is only bad if you don't know what the question is talking about. If you do not know what the question is talking about and you don't have articles, then you should consider curling up in the corner and crying yourself to sleep. If there's nothing you can use and you don't understand it, then there's not really much you can do. You're stuck in the middle of an ocean without a life raft. You can control that though. You can control and make sure that that never happens to you. That is like a DirecTV commercial. You're never that guy that has cable. You're the guy that has DirecTV. So make sure you understand the situation before you even get into the prep room. If you do, you shouldn't have too much struggle constructing a speech. If you do understand it, it shouldn't be too hard to construct a speech. The only challenge is going to be having evidence to fill in and support your claims, but you should at least have something that you can talk about if you understand it. And again, you control this completely. This is not up to the whims or the luck of whether or not you get a good question or a bad question. This is all about the work you're willing to put in before a tournament. Still try to find articles to satisfy the research requirement. Even if you can write a speech without articles, still try to find articles so that you can fulfill and uphold that research requirement. You need to have, in a lot of judges' minds, a certain number of articles for your speech to even be considered legitimate. So definitely try to find as many articles as you can possibly use. 4, spend time polishing. Now, this is all about making sure that you turn your difficulty into an opportunity. If there are no articles, you're going to spend less time researching because there's just not going to be as much stuff that you have to read through. So what that means is you're going to have less time researching, which means you're going to have more time doing other things. More times polishing your speech. More time making sure that your speech is well rehearsed and well crafted. Use that time to make your speech more polished. Practice good transitions, etc. Use that time constructively. Don't spend that time stressing about the fact that you have no articles. Do that after your speech is done. But basically just use that time, turn that time into an opportunity to polish. Winston Churchill once said that an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty and a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. Be an optimist when you are in an extemp prep room. Be an optimist. Seek a difficulty and find out ways that it can actually make your prep better. Find out ways that that obstacle can actually make you more effective, a better speaker as you go through prep time. If you spend more time practicing and polishing your speech, you're probably going to be one of the more rhetorically polished people in that room. You might have one of the best deliveries. That can set you apart. So don't stress about it, don't cry about it, but try to find ways that you can use it to your advantage, to construct your case instead of take it away.
What happens if you're a natural pessimist?
If you're a natural pessimist, then don't be pessimistic about yourself. Be pessimistic about the things around you, but for the sake of your results, it is better for your sake to try to see the opportunity in every difficulty. It's better to try to find ways to take advantage of something, even if it's bad. I guess this is less of being a pessimist or an optimist and more of being resilient or being defeated. You want to be resilient when you're in prep. You want to find a way to keep fighting to come back. You don't want to be defeated the instant you don't have any cards, you don't have any articles about something. You want to keep fighting, you want to keep coming back, you want to put in the effort, you want to put in the determination and the resiliency to set yourself apart. Finally, fill in the warrant. Fill in your warrants with very, very logical appeals. You're not going to have as much evidence, so it needs to be very heavily logically based. The reason you use evidence is to provide a warrant for a claim. It provides a reason why something is true. If you don't have evidence, you're going to have to prove things logically. If you do not have evidence, if you don't have something that you think is important, if you don't have something that you think is going to be able to effectively fit into your speech format, then you're going to have to approach it more logically. Approach it with maybe syllogistic proofs. Say, look, this is true, therefore this is true, and you can't deny that because logic, Judge. If you approach things logically, it can help you overcome the lack of evidence that you might have. Finally, don't skip having a warrant of some kind. It may just be a different form. Never do not have a warrant for a claim. Always have a warrant for your claims. Never sacrifice that on the altar of not having any articles. If you don't have articles, just find a way to persevere. You will survive, because remember, the night is always darkest just before dawn in Batman. Yeah, okay. So that's all